If you are interested in the Fujifilm GFX 50S II, which is a medium format digital camera, or the GF30mm lens, or the GF45 to 100mm lens, then this is the video for you. Welcome to the channel. My name is Stephen and I'm a landscape photographer based in New Zealand. And in today's video, we're going to be taking out the brand new Fujifilm GFX 50S II for a landscape photography shoot in the Redwoods and here locally to where I live in Pirongia. And we're going to be using the GF30mm lens and the GF45 to 100mm lens. So just as a bit of an intro, I've been a medium format film shooter for the last 3 years. All my photographs have been made with film. And recently I dropped my Mamiya 6 film camera, which is here. And I'll post a link to that video if you want to go and watch it. And I sent this off to an assessor for insurance, and they've basically written it off as unrepairable because of the availability of parts. So no doubt there will be some sort of settlement with my insurance company, and I will fully intend on replacing this camera because I totally will continue to shoot film. So full disclosure, I paid for this photography equipment myself with my own money, and I paid retail price. I haven't been asked to do this video, and it's just a video about me getting familiar with the camera, and it's essentially a real world shoot and review if you like. So what happens when a film photographer who's been shooting film for the last 3 years gets a medium format digital camera and goes out shooting for it for the first time? Let's find out. I hope you enjoyed the vlog, and we'll catch up towards the end of the video, and I will share some thoughts with you on what I like about this camera and what I think could be improved. Hey.
Hi.
How are you?
Thanks.
Such a beautiful place, eh? I often find myself when I do these landscape photography shots in the woodland, I always end up picking off all the debris off the leaves. Some people might say that's pedantic, eh? There we go, it's looking beautiful. Let's get this camera set up. I haven't taken any photographs with this camera yet. So she is fresh as she comes. So we're going to go for a 30mm, which is a 24mm equivalent full frame. Prime lens. It's got a huge back piece of glass on this one. I think it's bigger than the front piece of glass. You ready? And she's in. So do I go with a tripod or not? I don't think I do need a tripod because of the ibis. Let's go. It's interesting having this live preview on the back. I'm not used to that with a film. I almost kind of just intuitively want to just hold it like this, but I'm more used to going up to the eye. Yeah, that's better. You know, with this lens, I actually think you can close focus really closely. Shutter's really quiet. Really quiet. But it sounds, the shutter sounds big. It's like a curtain. As you can. Close focus within about 30 centimeters, I think. Let's move back a bit. That one's F4. 5.6. That's really shallow. This is the first shot, ISO 80 f8, 1/30th of a second, handheld, without a tripod. And it is razor sharp when you zoom in, it's incredible. Look at the detail and the out of focus areas. It's just beautiful. It's the beauty of your medium format, isn't it? Medium format, and the fall off you get is far more pleasing compared to your smaller form factors. It's a beautiful thing. So I just want to interrupt the video for a second to say I hope you're having a great week and I hope you're having a fantastic day. For 2021, I set myself a goal of reaching 5,000 subscribers by the end of the year. So I would hope that you would like to help me reach that goal, and thank you for doing so. Please hit the subscribe button down below and that'll be greatly appreciated. Right, so let's have a look at this 45mm to 100mm zoom lens. And it is a beast. Look at the size of it compared to the 30mm. And it's got an 82mm thread on the front. It's pretty big. So we'll stick it on the camera and then we'll just do some handhold shots, so walking through the forest and just try and pick out some interesting details. There we go. Cool. Run and gun style with his camera out. I've no idea what the close focus is on this thing. We'll give it a test, eh? F4, ISO 800. See how close we can get. Zoomed in 100mm. Maybe just under half a metre to the edge of that fern there, just sticking out. There we go. Shutter speed was 15th of a second. It's quite soft, that. Every time I glance my hand over the screen, the focus point changes because it moves accidentally. There we go. better. I really like this ergonomics of the thumb grip right here. It really does help with the grip of the camera, especially when you've got a big lens on the front like this. The details are just beautiful. Whew. Amazing stuff.
Do that with analog, Steve.
Shooting straight up, looking at the back of the screen. Be interesting to see what the dynamic range is like from this. I'm currently one stop under. It's quite a cool image. If I can just get that bit out. I'll never do that. F8. 1/2 of a second F8 ISO 800. It's quite cool that, I like that. The way that big tree just pierces through those ferns with the backlit ferns. This iOS in the lens is really handy as well. Not only have you got in-body stabilisation, but in the 45 to 100mm lens you've got in-body, in lens stabilisation, optical image stabilisation as well. This is a cool lens. Cool. So the next couple of images I'm going to show you are basically me testing out the dynamic range of this sensor. The Fujifilm GFX 50S has a unique sensor design, and it basically produces low signal to noise ratio in the images, which basically results in low noise in the images. But it also produces excellent colours in the recovered shadow areas, which you'll see in these photos. Because I've been taking photographs purely with a film camera for the last 3 years, when I went out to do some photography with this medium format digital camera, all the settings and the technology initially was quite overwhelming. However, the next day I did go out and take some more photographs in the Redwoods, and I basically just approached my photography as though I had a film camera in my hands, and here are some of the sample images that I was able to create. So I just want to quickly say a big thank you to Ewan Dunsmuir for being my cameraman for a couple of hours in the Redwoods while we made this video. Thank you, Ewan, that was a huge help. Please go check out his channel. He's got his own YouTube channel, and I'll leave a link in the description section down below, and it'll crop up here somewhere where you can go and check out his channel. He's a medium format shooter himself, and he specialises in panoramic images. A few days later, I took this Fujifilm GFX 50S II out for a landscape photography shoot locally here in Pirongia where I live. And I wanted to create some square images of Mount Pirongia at a composition or location that I've been to before and I've shot before. However, the weather conditions were different on this day. There was no clouds in the sky, and also it was a dawn shot. When I got there, I quickly realised that all the elements in the landscape were quite compressed in the image, and they were running laterally through the landscape and through the lens. So I quickly realised that this scene would suit a panoramic style images. So I went ahead and created a panoramic image. And then also we tested out the pixel shift technology in this camera, and you'll see that in this video now. Set up. So we'll just go 2-second timer, which we're on. Light meter is average. We're on manual focus. We've turned optical image stabilization off. So we are nice and level. Yep. And we are just manual focusing here, making sure that the mountain is sharp, but also just checking the depth of field range on the camera. essentially using the hyperfocal approach here, and we're going to do a panoramic. That looks good. I'm just doing 50% overlap. So this camera also has a pixel shift mode, and I want to try that out. Two-second timer. Just check composition. Make sure we are all good. Zoom in a little bit. And away we go. This is the pixel shift mode, and it actually takes 16 images, and then using Fujifilm Pixel Shift Combiner, we'll combine those on the computer to create a 200 megapixel image. So now we're going to share some initial thoughts on this camera, and I've made some notes here on my iPad, and we're going to refer to those right now. So what do I like about this camera? Well, straight off the bat, I've got to say that the image quality is excellent. The sensor design produces these low signal to noise ratio images, which means the ISO is very, very low, and also the dynamic range is very good, and the color reproduction in the shadow areas is excellent. Sharpness is also very good. I really like the color of the Fujifilm cameras, and the 19 film simulations that you get in this, I can really resonate with because I have come from a film background. The IBIS in this camera is excellent. It's got 6.5 stops of dynamic range. So depending on your hand-holding technique, you can capture sharp images with this camera at half a second, which is outstanding. It essentially means that in most cases, particularly when you're shooting at sunset and sunrise, you don't even need a tripod unless you're doing long exposures. I really like the size and weight of this camera, considering it's a 50 megapixel medium format sensor, The weight of this kit is about the same weight as my Mamiya 6 kit, which is very, very good. And with my Mamiya 6 kit, I have to carry filters and I have to carry a light meter. And because of the dynamic range of the sensor, I don't need graduated filters. I only need ND filters when I do long exposures. And I don't need a light meter because it's got a very capable light meter built into the camera. And the other thing to mention is that this body and the GF30mm lens and the GF45 to 100mm lens very comfortably fits into a small f-stop Pro ICU. I really like the ergonomics of the camera. It just naturally feels good in the hand. I talked about this in the video. I think the grip here at the front is nice and fits in my hand. I've got quite big hands and there's plenty of room there for me to grip it. I don't feel like it's too big or it's too small, and it just sits in my hand nicely. And it's got a thumb grip here, which you can see, and your thumb just naturally fits there. And when you're hand holding this, it's just quite easy to use. I do think there's a bit of weighted space on the back here. Perhaps they could have put a D-pad there or something else. But yeah, generally the ergonomics, I think, of this camera body are very, very good. I really like the LCD screen. You know, it flips out this way and it flips out this way, but it also flips down this way. So it covers everything that you need as a landscape photographer. And the viewfinder is very, very bright and there's no problems there. The battery life is okay for how I use it. I did find that when I was making the video in the Redwoods, my battery life did run down from fully charged down to being on a red warning sign, but it never actually ran out. So I'm pretty confident that how I would use it, I only need one battery. I would do a photo shoot in the morning, and then I would put the battery on charge, and then by the time it gets to sunset, I'll have a full battery. I really like this top plate LCD screen. It's got lots of information on there. And you can also change the information. You can have it so it shows the dials, like the original dials you got on like the Fujifilm X-T1. And it's got a histogram, which is quite useful. Although I will say that I do actually prefer the dials on the top there. Coming from a film background, I really appreciate the tactile kind of feel and how they work. So I would have preferred the dials on there, the analog type dials instead of an LCD screen. But anyway, that's a minor thing. The LCD screen is quite useful as well. So what are the things that I think could have been done a little bit differently, or things that I'd like to see changed in the future? Well, the first thing I'd like to say straight off the bat is this camera only has 14-bit color. And there's nothing wrong with 14-bit color, but the GFX 100S has 16-bit color. And just to put things into perspective, 16-bit color reproduction basically means that you get better gradation through the color spectrum in the camera. And when you're printing very large, that's quite important, and it helps remove banding issues. Just to put things into further perspective, when I scan my film on my Epson V800 using Silverfast, the files are larger than what I get out of this camera. And that's because of the 48-bit color depth. But this camera obviously produces bigger images because it's a 50 megapixel sensor and the sharpness is better, but the color that I get out of my scanner is better than what I get out of this camera. The second thing to mention, the rendering time that this camera takes to render a long exposure that is longer than approximately 2 to 3 seconds is the same time as the actual exposure itself. So essentially you end up doubling the time to create a photograph, which is a little bit annoying. I just want to be able to take the photograph if it's a long exposure, and I can do this with my film camera. I can do a 4 second all the way up to a minute, whatever exposure, and I let the shutter release off, and then I just wind it on. Appreciate that there's some more technology in this, but I do think that if things could be quicker with this X Processor 4, then with software updates, they should just make it quicker. The other thing to mention is the Fuji Raw Studio software that you can download from the Fujifilm website for this camera. It's quite useful. It's quite good for previewing the raw files on the computer, but it is quite clunky. And I don't know if it's working correctly with this camera, because when I import the images or try to view the images, the software looks like you can make some light and contrast minor raw file adjustments, but it just won't work. And sometimes it crashes, so it's quite annoying. But I do like it because you can see the raw files. So if they could do some improvements there to make that work better, that would be awesome. I've experienced some issues getting the images off the SD card onto my computer. I would normally just take the SD card out of the camera and put it into the SD card slot on my iMac, and then just drag the images across into a folder. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I don't really know why it works and sometimes and not others, but the only reliable way to get images off the camera is to plug the camera directly into the computer and then use Lightroom to import them that way. The other software related thing that I noticed is that Capture One Express for Fujifilm will only open the JPEG files from this camera. It won't open the RAW files. I don't know if that's a normal thing, whether Capture One Express is just for JPEGs or whether it should be able to open the RAW files. If you do know, please leave a comment. I'd like to know that. The other thing that I picked up that I thought would be quite an easy update to do on the camera is the ability for the LCD screen to show what focal length you are at when you're using the zoom. Because at the minute you just have the indications on the lens, and they're helpful. But when you really want to be really precise with the focal length that you're using, there's no way of finding out what focal length you are at. And I think this is quite an easy software update to do. I seem to remember that it did it on the Fujifilm X-T1. There was just a reading that came out on the LCD screen that says what focal length you are at. And if they're able to show that in 35mm format, that would be awesome. Some more options for the quick menu would be really, really good, I think. And one that springs to mind is the ability to switch IBIS on and off quickly. For example, 1 second I might be hand-holding a shot using my prime lens, which doesn't have an stabilization switch-off button like the zoom lens does here. So I might be hand-holding using the prime lens, taking some shots, and the IBIS is doing its thing, which is great. But then maybe I want to move onto a tripod, and I don't want the IBIS working then because I know the tripod's stable. And to make sure I get sharp images, I want to turn off the IBIS. To do that, I've got to go into the menu and find it and then switch it off. I think if they just had a quick menu option, you could just quickly go in and then switch it off. So I think that would be quite a useful update. I'm sure there's other things that people would appreciate in the quick menu. So if you've got any ideas, then again, please leave a comment down below in the section down below, and leave some comments on what you think else could be in the quick menu on the Fujifilm GFX 50S. I really do like the touchscreen on the camera. It's quite helpful, and it is touch to focus. And one thing that I thought that could be quite useful, I think, and I find this on my iPhone when I'm using Filmic for making videos, there's actually two touch options. You can have one for the focus area and one for the light meter area. If it's possible to do this on this camera system, I think that would be awesome, because you could have your focus area at one point, and then using the spotlight meter, you can touch to select where you want your spot meter reading. It does have exposure lock, and you can use that by moving around the focus point, but it takes extra time. It just adds extra time to the shot. And when you're trying to chase the light, you just want something that works quickly. So I think that would be quite a nice upgrade if they could actually do that. So just some other things to note: my late 2014 5K iMac actually really struggles with the file size in Lightroom. I had to move my Lightroom editing process over to a low resolution process instead of working on the actual RAW files, because it just struggled, and it really struggled with the spot removal tool. Everything else seemed to be fine, but as soon as I started using spot removal on multiple images, it just got really, really slow. So I had to change the preferences so that the previews were in a low resolution format. So the other thing to note is that if you use the Fujifilm Pixel Shift technology in this camera, anything that's moving obviously will be blurred in the final image once you've merged them together using Fujifilm Pixel Shift Merge. And in some cases, depending on the amount of movement, for example, I noticed that when leaves move around, it just becomes this kind of ugly pixelated area. So just be aware of it. It's not an issue with the camera. It's just a fact of life of when you're using a pixel shift technology, but you just need to be aware of it. So thanks for watching the video. I really hope you found it useful. And as usual, please leave your comments down below and I will provide some responses as normal. Please subscribe to the channel, especially if you want to see more content like this. I've got a video coming out soon where I take this camera out to do some more panoramic images, and the results actually turned out to be quite a surprise, and I'm looking forward to showing you those images and showing you the video. So thanks once again. I really hope you have a fantastic rest of your week. Bye for now, take care, see you soon.